Hello and welcome to Crazy Christian Conspiracy Theories number 3, from Mike Wonky to Harry Potter and everything in between. So, back in this time in my life, I believe that Mike Wonky really was a Satanist high priest. That everything he wrote in this book and he taught on the videos and the tapes and everything was true. So that's the mentality I was in at the time. So after a whole bunch of ex-Satanists that are now saved, even though they were never Satanists in the first place, a former Satanist high priest reveals the demonic forces behind the fastest growing and most deadly occult religion in the world. There really is no organized Satan religion apart from the atheist bunch. Anyhow, so after that nonsense happened in Christianity, phase 2 of that nonsense happened. Anybody that was connected to witches and wizards and high priests of Satan and that was evil. So therefore, logically, fiction characters that were witches and wizards henceforth therefore must be also evil, even though they don't exist in real life. So we have this conspiracy rise up against Harry Potter. Saying that these books, if you read these books, the books have spells in them, and if you practice the spells hard enough, you reach contact with demons and get into more and more harder spells, and eventually become a witch for real. Well, okay. Alright, so have a few problems with that. Where do you buy a wand? I know I've got a plastic one, but I want a real one. Man, they're expensive. You can get them made. There are tutorials on how to make your own, but anyhow, so I'm going to become a witch, yeah. Where do you buy a wand? Where do you buy spell books? Where do you buy cauldrons? Where do you buy all the ingredients? Where do you get dragon's blood from? To say that these are evil is to say that fiction can alter. Fictional characters can come into reality, into existence in real life, and affect reality. The only way these things can affect reality is by the amount of shelf space they take up, because they're so thick. God, I actually prefer the books to the movies. There's a lot of stuff in the movies that... There's a lot of stuff that didn't make it into the movies that really make a really good story. I mean, Deathly Hallows, like the whole story about the Horcruxes and how they were originally made, and how Voldemort got a hold of them, and the spells that were put on them and all this. It's really cool, but it's just like breezed over in the movie. It would be such a cool standalone movie, just the Horcruxes by themselves. Yeah, because even the books don't go into enough detail for me. I want to know who the characters were that got their first Horcrux and what was to become a Horcrux and how it was chosen, and more detail. Yeah, needs more detail. There you go, there's my review. Anyway, so my personal experience with these books, because I didn't have the DVDs at the time of the whole Harry Potter is evil thing, I'm really into books, so I prefer the books to the movies. But I've got all the DVDs now and all the Blu-ray versions. But how it affected me personally was I had to basically hide these things, the books, in a box. Like my mum had to hide her Women's Weeklies and Women's Weekly and New Ideas, because they were evil. So I had to hide these books because people from the church would come around and make note of what I owned and would critique what I owned, and I knew that if they found these things that they would literally advise me. Oh, well, they did advise me to actually, if you own anything like that, to take it out back and burn it in a bonfire. You shouldn't be reading this stuff, you shouldn't be owning this stuff, you shouldn't be collecting this stuff. It is evil, it draws children away from God and into the occult, and I would like a list of all the names of the children that have left Christianity because of these books and are now full-blown members of covens and things like that. That would be great. Thank you very much. Email it to idon'tcaregoaway.co.nz. So that really didn't affect me that much. I was kind of aware that they were saying this crap, but I personally enjoyed reading it myself, and as long as I kept them in the closet, so to speak, I was pretty safe. But what did affect me was phase 3 of the everything to do with witches, therefore must be evil, or anything to do with wizards, therefore must be evil. I guess I was at this stage where I just didn't tell people about what I was into at the church. I learnt to hide my interests, which is what I obviously, yeah, well, I still have the issue because it's even worse nowadays. But yeah, there were things that, because J.R.R. Tolkien had wizards in his stories, and therefore the Lord of the Rings obviously must be evil. I've been collecting all sorts of Lord of the Rings stuff, not just games. This is a music audio CD. I've got all the movies on, well, the Lord of the Rings movies on VHS and DVD, and I've got The Hobbit's the only thing I own solely on Blu-ray because I wanted the best quality, so I never bought. Did it come out on DVD? I don't know. Your special edition has got. There are DVDs in the. Where the hell's it? Oh, where's the disc gone? Oh my gosh! Oh, it's in my. Okay, it's panicked over. It's in my special case. Okay, sorry. There are DVDs in the Blu-ray boxes. Righty ho. So yeah, because Gandalf is a wizard and all that, and it's got magic in it. Anything with magic in it was evil, and you hear sermons on it, but at this point I was like, I don't want to hear this. I don't want to hear this. I just want to get on with my life, and I don't need to hear how things that I'm really interested in, especially with Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back and The Return of the Jedi, was of the devil. You know, it's number one, provide yeah, whatever. Number one, provide evidence that what you're saying is true in any way, shape or form, and evidence of how Star Wars was based on the god Shiva in Hinduism, etc. Do a, I don't know, study on it, a thesis, do some scientific, what do they do? Scientific study on the evils of Lord of the Rings. I mean, it's just stupid. Anyway, so that really, it kind of pissed me off, but didn't piss me off a hell of a lot, because I was just like, But what did piss me off is Phase 4, when they attacked the very thing that I grew up loving as a child, that they attacked, and that is The Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis, because it's got witches in it. Therefore it must be evil. Therefore logically it must be evil. So I found this in an op shop the other day. It's like I don't know what. I should listen to it, eh? Find out, is it the book, or is it must be a cut down. It's only 2 cassette tapes. A BBC full cast dramatization. I should transfer that to computer. And what's this one? The Abridged Chronicles of Narnia. This is an audiobook. No, it's not. What is it? 2 hours and 25 minutes of the last battle. Maybe I should listen to these things and not just buy them and stick them on the shelf with my collection. But anyway, so I went to this thing on Christian media, a training, not a training course, but a lecture. A weekend workshop on Christian media. And Bruce Logan was there. And he mentioned something that affected my life, because back at the time I wanted to introduce puppets into my YouTube videos. Well, YouTube didn't exist back then, but what the projects that I was doing, I wanted to introduce puppets into, which would eventually be uploaded to YouTube when YouTube was invented. And, you know, he said that he had personal experiences with Christians telling him that puppets were evil, therefore they were, you know, because they have eyes, that they could be influenced by demons, and that Christians using puppets in their sermons or stories or whatever, this is before VeggieTales existed, we're basically dabbling in the occult. We're toying with demons. So I asked him, I went up and asked him after the workshop had finished. I said, you know, I've heard these rumors about Christians who are using cartoon animals are evil. Can you tell me more about that? And he told me the whole story, that a lot of Christians were very, very upset with the Chronicles of Narnia because it's got an anthropomorphic lion as Jesus, and it's got unicorns in it and birds, and centaurs and all this sort of stuff, and they really had issues with it. There's probably... I really haven't dug deep into it. There's probably websites that point out why Narnia is so evil. I really don't care anymore. I don't want to know. I don't know why book 4's missing. I gotta look after my books more. This is really, really old. Gosh, these are falling apart. Anyway, so I don't have a favourite. They're all my favourite. It's really, really hard to have a favourite. But the biggest would be The Magician's Nephew, because this is how Aslan formed all the universes, planets, all the worlds of Narnia. And the two kids, they find these rings and they jump in these puddles, and each puddle goes to a different world. And so they go to this place and they go to this castle and they ring this bell in this old dusty place, and guess who they revive? The good old witch of Narnia. And there she is riding a horse, because what happens is she follows the children back to London and just starts commanding the police officers to do her will, and everything goes to pot. It's a funny story. It's a really, really funny story. But here's all, how Aslan created all the animals, the creatures, the planets, the worlds. It's really cool. And of course the most famous one is book 2, The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. Been made into a BBC episode, whatever, mini movie, and now a full-on Lionsgate movie. It's not one that I do like it, but the stories in the other books are better. More fantastic. Yeah. The Horse and His Boy is the best one. Should be turned into a movie, a standalone movie. This is a poor little kid like Harry Potter, who's raised by an abusive parent. Well, he's not really his father. In the end, it turns out it wasn't his father anyway. Just somebody that found him, don't give it away, and treats him like crap and doesn't feed him and and then eventually he runs away on a horse and goes to the city and finds out who he really is. And it's the most amazing story out of them all. It should be a movie. It's just amazing. Book 4, I don't know, because it's not in here. 5 is Voyage of the Dawn Treader. Cool book. The BBC version is rubbish. The Lionsgate movie's much better. But of course it's got a dragon on it, so I love dragons. Don't tell any Christians that I love dragons, because they say dragons are demonic because Chinese dress up as dragons or some connection. I don't care anymore. Silver Chair is really cool. Not a really awesome book, but the connection I had as a kid was that Doctor Who at the time, Tom Baker played a role in the BBC version as the Marshwiggle Puddleglum, and I just love that. And of course The Last Battle. Wow, talk about the battles of the Lord of the Rings being big. This is the God King Tyrion faces the fierce challenge ever to any of Narnia's king's rule. There is a false Aslan roaming the land, commanding all Narnians to work for the cruel Calumnies. Calormenes. I never said that word out loud before. Narnia's only hope is that Eustace and Jill, old friends to Narnia, will be able to find the true Aslan and restore peace to the land. The last battle is the greatest of all battles and the final ending of the most magnificent of all endings, and this is the last of C.S. Lewis's timeless series of Chronicles of Narnia. Brilliant. I forgot to tell you that Useless starts off as a real grumpy, no-hoping so-and-so and just becomes the nicest person after that. So that's a really cool part of the book. So that's how this whole Harry Potter is evil, Lord of the Rings is evil, Narnia is evil thing affected me. Don't care anymore, not interested in anything anybody has to say. They're still harping on about now that Ant-Man and Wasp and Captain America and Thor and Iron Man are all demons in disguise, taking people away from the church and blah, blah, blah. And I no longer care, so let's move on.